What's up, gang? I got a word for y'all today. This time of year looks different for me now. Because I can remember a time that I wasn't celebrating because I was barely surviving. When my mom died in 2012, and then my grandmother, her mom, in 2013, I fell into a grief that I didn't know how to carry. I wasn't just sad, I was angry. I was angry at life, and if I'm being honest, I was angry at God. I felt abandoned. I felt like everybody who had the hand of bringing me into this world had left me in it by myself. My dad was killed when I was 8, and I don't really remember a lot of that, but I do remember the trauma that came from it. And that's when fear took over. It wasn't just grief anymore. It had become a paralyzing fear of death. Not even my own death. It was the fear of losing someone else close to me, like, God forbid, my son. So I was like walking around life on eggshells in fear that another tragedy was around the corner. And I said something dangerous, not just emotionally dangerous, but spiritually dangerous. I told God, Lord, if you take Daryl, I swear it's over for me. In that moment, I didn't realize it, but I gave the enemy legal right to wage war on my mind. Because our words have power. Proverbs 18:21 said, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And that's when the warfare intensified. Not when I was out in the world, not when I was distant from God, but after I surrendered. And people don't talk about that part. We think that surrendering to God fixes everything instantly. But sometimes surrendering exposes the battlefield. And one day I repeated that same vow to God. I said, if you take my son, it's over. And he checked me because God needed me to understand something. He is the giver of life. He is the sustainer of life. And he is the one that numbers our days. Job said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And if you don't know that testimony, you can find it somewhere on my YouTube. But long story short, death came close enough for me to feel it. But obedience saved his life. Not my fear, not my control, not my strength, but my obedience. Because when God tells you to pray, you pray. And when God tells you to move, you move. And when God tells you to cover your child, cover them. Psalms 91:11 says, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. That scripture came to me in a prophecy. And that's when I understood. My son was never my possession. He was God's assignment. And once I realized that, everything shifted. The grief that suffocated me and the fear that governed me, the depression that convinced me that life wasn't worth living, it had to break because God reminded me there's so much more to life. Not just survival, not just avoiding pain, not just waiting on the next attack, but promise, purpose, and legacy. And Jesus reminds us of that in John 10:10. He said, I came so that you may have life and have it more abundantly. So now I go after everything that God says I can have. Not because I'm fearless, but because I know who holds my life and my son's life in his hands. And I will never again speak death over my future just because I'm afraid to lose something. Fear no longer writes my vows. God does. And there is more to life, more to my story, more to my purpose, and I'm living so that I see what God has already written. So if you ever made vows out of fear, break them. Speak life over your future and your kids' future. Surrender, but stay in position because God is not finished writing your story. Love y'all. Bye.